It's a podcast. I like your show.
How did I get here? Welcome to the Shipe Sports Show.
Good evening, sports fans. Welcome to another episode of the Shipe Sports Talk Show. I'm your host, always, Matthew Shipe, joined always by my co-host and producer, Paul.
How you doing, Matt? How you doing, boys?
Good. How you doing, Paul?
Great.
Joined always by Chris. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
As you can see, Anthony is not here today, so we found a replacement for him. See how he does.
What?
Maybe it'll be the permanent replacement.
It looked like Anthony.
But joining us on Skype.
In studio.
On Skype, our NHL guru, Mr. Joe. Joe, how are you doing?
Good, sir. Good. Thank you guys for having me back on here again.
No problem. Last time we were on here, we were talking about the hockey playoffs.
Indeed. But we're 20 games away from that now, so we're going to talk
Yes, we are. It's coming
NHL
up quick.
Trade Deadline today.
And before we get started, remind you guys you can follow Bojo on Twitter at his handle, BOJoeKO, and also check out his YouTube videos, BOJoeKO, for all NHL type videos. He does a whole bunch of awesome things. He does a Be the GM mode in NHL Live. He has I believe you do a pro player type, like a career mode type as a pro player, and he also discusses NHL on it. So all your NHL fans, follow BOJoeKO at Twitter and YouTube.
It's really good stuff. You know,
It is.
good
It's
stuff. You
interesting.
put
I
out
love
some
watching.
good stuff, Bojo. So go follow
Stop,
him.
Paul.
Go,
You're making me
go
blush.
watch him. Go watch him.
So let's get right into the trade deadline. Obviously, a lot of people are saying the deadline itself at the time was a little lackluster. Joe, what do you say about that?
It normally is. For the past, especially last year, I don't know how much you paid attention to it last year, but it was very lackluster last year, and no difference this year, even though there were a lot more bigger storylines leading up to this year because of the looming expansion draft that is scheduled for this summer, which is a couple days before the NHL entry draft takes place. As you guys know, Las Vegas has its own team this year, the Vegas Golden Knights. They officially got named an official for 100% official NHL franchise, I believe, day of the NHL trade deadline. So technically, they were able to make trades with other teams. I believe they were only allowed to trade if they were to make anything. I'm pretty sure they were only allowed to make trades for draft picks and things like that, or future considerations for certain types of players. But they didn't do anything. As you guys are Washington Capitals fans, you might remember the name George McPhee. He is the current GM of the Vegas Golden Knights, a former GM of the Washington Capitals. So I was expecting them maybe to make, at least one minor trade, but sadly they remained quiet. But once again, the expansion draft was coming up. There were a lot of more big name players in this year's trade deadline coming up, especially because just a couple of names that were being up there. A lot of players from Colorado, like Matt Duchene, Gabriel Landeskog, were mentioned a lot. Kevin Shattenkirk was the number one probably scouted and projected free agent defenseman that was going to be traded at this deadline, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, I expected a lot more trades to be made, and the value that some of these players once again were going for was a little bit more risk-worthy, and draft picks were being sent out like hotcakes this year because other than the first, people say it's a deep draft. I would argue to disagree with them. I think it's a much weaker draft than it has been in the previous years. You have maybe 4 or 5 good players, top 5 of the guys, maybe a couple scattered throughout the first round, but other than that, I don't really see it as a really strong NHL draft this year. So people are trading draft picks like wildfire, and there definitely were some interesting trades to go along this year.
Well, after further ado, let's get right to it. What are your opinions on the our hometown Capitals trade for the top defenseman, as you said, out there for the draft, as they would say, the top rental for trade? Mm-hmm. I said draft, I meant trade.
It was a bit of surprise, wasn't it, Joe? I mean, it was like
It was because your GM mentioned that he was just looking to add some depth players for a playoff run, and he went out there and didn't get a depth guy.
I was with you online when we found out, and you just were just like, what?
It was pretty shocking to me, but Let me go over the trade for you guys really quick in case, the viewers don't know about that. So the Washington Capitals acquired defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk and goaltender Phoenix Copley from the St. Louis Blues in return for a 2017 first-round draft pick, a 2019 conditional draft pick, prospect Zach Sanford, and Brad Malone. So, just going over a couple of things before we get into the big name players. Phoenix Copley, I think, is a 24-year-old goaltender prospect. Probably doesn't have anything too spectacular other than maybe just like an AHL starter type of goaltender. So, nothing really too fantastic in that deal. The Blues, once again, get a 2017 first-round pick. I'm expecting the Capitals to make a huge, really deep playoff run this year, so that's going to be
A late rounder.
late 20 round pick, which is no big deal. The 2019 draft pick is a conditional pick. I believe the conditions are if Shattenkirk plays more than 50% of the remaining Washington Capitals games, and I think it goes along something with him re-signing as well. I didn't actually put the conditions on here in my notes, but it's along something like that. It's not going to be a huge draft pick. I think it's not going to be better than the third or the fourth round pick in 2019 at best. Brad Malone was a depth player, and then Zach Sanford was highly, he wasn't the best prospect that you guys have in your system. I would have been more surprised if they traded a guy like Madison Bowie or Jacob Vrana, but the fact that they only got away with trading away Zach Sanford was not too bad. He was projected to maybe be like a future second or third line player for you guys. He's played decent this year for you, but having the Capitals only trade away that guy and getting back Kevin Shattenkirk and really not damaging it too much of your future, it's a really good move for the Capitals.
So basically,
Value
Capitals
wise.
are all in right now, win it, or it
That-
seems like their window could be winding down. It seems like, obviously, I mean, I'm going in with Ovi's age, getting up there and everything, but it seems like, with all teams, you can only have so much of a run until your window starts closing. It seems like this is more of a we need to win now type of move.
It's exactly what I have here in my notes because I mentioned before we started the show, I still have to make 2 videos reviewing all the entire thing, both with the Flyers did and just as the whole trade in general. One phrase, cup or bust. That's exactly what I have written down. The Caps are the best team in the NHL right
That's
now.
what it has on ESPN's.
And
Yep.
they need to win the cup this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They need to win the cup this year. With them acquiring Kevin Shattenkirk, guy who's going to put up, roughly around 30 to 40 points per year, but not really does that matter right now because there's only 21 games left. But he's really reliable two-way defenseman that can put up points, really reliable defensively. And the fact is that you guys trading for Kevin Shattenkirk, you make the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins weaker. They had to do corresponding moves so that they had to compete with that for a bit. I know the Rangers really wanted to try to get Kevin Shattenkirk, and as a result, they couldn't get him, so they ended up grabbing Ben Smith from the is it Ben Smith? No, it's Brendan Smith from the Detroit Red Wings, while the Pittsburgh Penguins got a lot of veteran players like Ron Hainsey, Frankie Corrado, and eventually Mark Streit from Tampa Bay, from Philadelphia. So you make your team better, you make New York and Pittsburgh worse, and as I mentioned before, you didn't really give up a whole lot of your future in order to obtain him.
All right, now my second question for you is, Capitals, they're struggling to win a cup in the playoffs. If let's say Ovi never wins a cup, would you almost can compare him to Dan Marino, the way he never won a Super Bowl. Does that tarnish Ovi's legacy at all, or do you think he'll still go down maybe as a top 5 player in the NHL?
He definitely will. The Ovi's one of the best pure goal scorers in the NHL that we've seen in a long, long time. I don't think it'll tarnish. I mean, it'll be. There's plenty of other players. I can't name them off the top of my head right now, but there's plenty of other players that are in the NHL Hall of Fame or are not playing currently that have never won a Stanley Cup, but they go down as some of the best players in NHL history. I mean, I could name one right now, Eric Lindros, for instance, guy who was hard-nosed, tough, could score goals, could throw the body, could fight, never won a Stanley Cup. So it doesn't tarnish it all too much just because you know what a great player it was. It's just going to be looking back on it, man, I really wonder what it would have felt like if he would have won a cup.
Yep.
But
all right, now.
But overall, winners of that trade are definitely. Honestly, I would give wins to both teams. Washington gets a really solid defenseman for a really, hopefully, a long playoff run. And the Blues get a pretty decent return for somebody who was, if they didn't trade him, was going to walk and test free
Exactly.
agency at the end of the season anyway. So honestly, it's a really good trade for both teams.
All right,
Mhm.
now let's move on to your team's trade that was at the deadline that I saw you commented saying that if you think this trade is good, you're not a real hockey fan. So maybe you should elaborate on that a little bit because I saw that and it was like, oh, he's really attacking out there.
I think I was a little bit too heated with actually when the trade came through. But looking back on it right now, it's not as bad as it initially seems. I don't want to go like diving too deep into it because I still want to make like
Obviously,
a
yeah.
ton of stuff from my other video. But to review, basically the Philadelphia Flyers traded Mark Streit, 39-year-old veteran defenseman, to the Tampa Bay Lightning in return for a 4th-round pick in 2017, a conditional pick in 2017, which is a 7th-round pick, which, well, it was a conditional pick, but we eventually becomes a 7th-round pick because literally the condition wrote, we get a 7th-round pick if Tampa Bay trades Mark Streit. Lo and behold, they did that an hour later. And
I just saw that.
we gained back Valtteri Filppula in return. Now, the reason that I'm upset with this is Tampa Bay eventually moves Mark Streit to Pittsburgh for a 4th-round pick. Pretty much the exact same return that we could have gotten if we traded directly with them. But it's like rule number 1 in sports, you never really want to trade with your number 1 rival in any sport, whether it be hockey, baseball, football, anything along those lines. You never want to trade with your number 1 rival. The thing is, if they just traded Mark Streit for a draft pick, that would remove immediately $5.25 million off the Flyers cap immediately once the season ends. That would be gone. A bunch of other players are coming up on their deals ending, and we would have a lot of cap room and wiggle room to work with if we wanted to go out and sign some big names in free agency. However, Steve Yzerman, general manager for the Tampa Bay Lightning, kind of fleeced us in this little deal, sending back Valtteri Filppula. $5 million cap hit, a no movement clause, and having that $5 million for another year, meaning that we have to hold on to his cap hit for another year. The no movement clause in his deal is very interesting because of the fact that in the expansion draft, any player that has a no movement or a no trade clause, that team is required to protect them in the draft. So as a result, we have to protect Valtteri Filppula in the expansion draft when it is time, meaning that we as a team only really have 1 forward spot open left to protect the player. There's the possibility that the Flyers could buy out him at the end of the year. That would put, I think, $1.6 million for another 2 years if they do decide to buy him out, saving about $3 million per year, which would be okay. But I guess the reason that Ron Hextall did this was because we need a bona fide top 6 center, to be honest. Filppula is not really the answer, though, the Flyers are looking for. He's a pass-first type of player. He hasn't had production numbers since he signed that 5-year contract in Tampa Bay where he put up, I think, 21 or 25 goals. Hasn't really done all that too much because he was put in a role in Tampa Bay where he was logging extreme amounts of minutes. So he might actually benefit from this, but it really doesn't answer the Flyers' needs at this current time where they need goal scorers, not pass-first type of players.
All right, thank you for that. And the last 2 I want to get to, because I know you want to talk more on it on your own podcast, and I want to take you away from that. The last 2 I just want to talk to you about are the one you mentioned, the Minnesota Wild, and them getting Martin, I hope I said Hansel. Hansel, I say that right?
Hansel, yep, both are right.
Okay. Now they're already on first place. Does this make them even now more of a contender for the Cup? As in, as you said, Wild versus Capitals.
I would, if the Wild don't match up with the Chicago Blackhawks in the Western Conference, they're going to the Cup. I'm saying that right here and now. And Washington, you should get very familiar with Minnesota because they're good. They're really scary good. Martin Hansel, I'll go over this trade once again. Minnesota Wild acquire Martin Hansel, Ryan White, and a 2017 4th-round pick from the Arizona Coyotes for Grayson Downing, a 2017 first, a 2018 second, and a 2019 4th-round pick, which is conditional. Arizona got a really good return in this for Hansel, a guy who has never put up more than, I think, 20 goals ever in his entire career. So, or 20 goals in his career per season, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But the Wild have scary depth on on center and on forward position. Let me name off all these forwards for you guys right now on the Minnesota Wild. Zach Parise, Mikael Granlund, Nino Niederreiter, Jason Zucker, Eric Haula, Martin Hansel, Miku Koivu, Jason Pominville, Charlie Coyle. Not to mention you have Dumba, Suter, Brodin, Scandella, and Spurgeon on D, and Devin Dubnyk in the net. That's a scary lineup for the Minnesota Wild. Once again, they're another team that wants to win the Stanley Cup right now, and they made that really good move with Martin Hansel. He's big. He's like 6'6", 6'7" centerman. He's a huge guy who's really good at defense, really good at faceoffs, can put himself right in front of the net to block the goaltender out, put on some real offensive pressure. Minnesota Wild are really great. They have had some trouble in the playoffs, though, when they match up, especially with the Chicago Blackhawks. And as I mentioned, if they don't end up facing Chicago, they have a really good chance of getting to the Cup Finals. And guys might want to be on the lookout for Minnesota.
How far did they get last season?
The Minnesota Wilds. How far did they get last season? Give me a minute, Paul.
Okay.
Give me a minute.
They made the playoffs, though, I guess, right?
They definitely did.
Uh-huh.
I
was trying to remember because I didn't remember. I guess I was definitely focused on the Caps at that point, but I don't remember.
They got knocked out of the first round by Dallas in 6.
Okay, gotcha.
They were the wild card team last year, but this time they're going to be probably, if anything doesn't change, they're going to be the top seed in the West.
Oh wow! All right, so they're going pretty strong.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the last one I want to ask you about before you take off here. What do you think about the Lightning sending their goalkeeper to the Kings? What does this do for the Kings, and what does this do for the Lightning?
Nothing.
Because I was reading about
really...
where they said the Kings need more scoring than goaltender, and this was almost like not even worth it.
This trade is a really big head scratcher for me. Once again, the Los Angeles Kings acquire Ben Bishop, a 2017 fifth round pick, and a 2017 conditional pick in return for the Tampa Bay Lightning send off Ben Bishop, a fifth round, and a conditional pick to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for Eric Cernak, Peter Budaj, and a 2017 seventh round pick. First of all, the return that they got for Ben Bishop is horrible. LA is not in a playoff spot right now at the current moment. They just got Jonathan Quick back from injury since he's been out the entire year. And this trade really shows how much LA cared about Peter Budaj saving their season. Peter Budaj has been on an amazing run as the LA Kings goaltender right now. A guy who used to jump around from every team right now, even jumped around to the AHL at one point. He was having a really, really phenomenal year for the LA Kings and has basically saved their season. And they ship him off to Tampa Bay in return that the Kings get Bishop. It doesn't make really much sense to me that why they would get Ben Bishop unless obviously they know something we don't know and they're not 100% on Jonathan Quick's health right now. Ben Bishop is definitely a bona fide starting goaltender. He was also going to be a free agent at the end of this year, and the Tampa Bay Lightning needed to get something for him immediately. The question I ask about this trade is that if LA really wanted Ben Bishop at the time, why didn't they make this trade for him months beforehand when they knew Jonathan Quick went down immediately and they knew that they had a good chance of going to the playoffs? Granted, the price for him probably would have been exponentially higher. They probably would have had to send maybe 2 first-round picks and a highly touted B+ prospect for this. So Tampa Bay, they had to get, and as the Yzerman said, this was the best deal that they had available on the table for Ben Bishop at the time. So it doesn't make much sense to me. Obviously, LA Kings goaltending duo is really good right now with Jonathan Quick and Ben Bishop, but that really doesn't address the LA Kings' needs at this right time. You don't really need to bolster up your goaltending tandem that much if you still have issues, other than the goaltending position. It's a weird trade. It's a very weird trade. Didn't really understand it all too much.
I guess there's gonna be those weird ones.
Yeah, there were a bunch of other weird ones that were definitely noted in this thing. Oh, and really quick, one more thing before I go. Clap it up for the Vancouver Canucks GM, Jim Benning. He got some phenomenal returns for Alexander Burrows and Yannick Hansen, two kind of like middle of their prime, but not really great goal scorers in this league, but just like really good depth forwards. He got some really good returns for that. And Jim Benning has been in the past been known for a guy that's been criticized for making some very questionable trades, and he did a really good job at the trade deadline. And I know, Matt, you definitely wanted me to go over just real quick before I go the overall winners and losers of the draft or the trade deadline.
Right.
Winners, Washington and Minnesota are the clear-cut front runners for the winners. They picked up things that they especially needed for a playoff run. Vancouver and Arizona picked up really good prospects for the players that they sent off. Colorado, I put Colorado under a winner as well, just because they did not get Joe Sakic's asking price for both Matt Duchene and Gabriel Landeskog, Tyson Barrie, especially players like that. He put way too high of an asking price on them, and honestly, that's okay. For those players like that, skill players like Duchene and Landeskog who are under 26, wait till the draft comes. That's when you'll get the true full value you'll get for players of that stature. So honestly, good on Sakic for holding on to those guys, and patience is definitely needed for especially those type of players. So I'm glad he didn't get pressured into it. As for the losers, the New York Islanders did absolutely nothing. I think Garth Snow might have been like sleeping on his. I don't know. Somebody didn't wake him up apparently on trade deadline day. I don't understand how the New York Islanders didn't do anything. They're 1 point back of the Toronto Maple Leafs for that final wild card spot. They didn't do a dang thing. They didn't trade away any of their players. They didn't bring in anything. It's a very. I don't know. I don't know what the Islanders are doing. They need to get their arena is terrible. Their GM is terrible. Just move to somewhere else. I don't know. Take a franchise somewhere else. I'm surprised Buffalo didn't do anything either. They had a couple of defensemen that were UFAs like Cody Franson, Dmitry Kulikov, Brian Giunta didn't trade either. So Buffalo a little bit of a head scratcher there. They were not going to be a playoff team, so I'm surprised they didn't make any moves. And then, as I mentioned, Las Vegas. I know everybody really wanted them to make a trade, but still, we'll have to see. What we're really looking forward to them is the expansion draft, and hopefully I'll be back in June when we talk about that, because that'll be a truly exciting thing to talk about.
They already have a fan in Bryce Harper. He's already bought like a hat and everything, and had a tweet that said, "Sorry, Caps, but this is my team now." Like, oh man, come on.
Damn.
Where he wore a Cowboys hat and a non-Capitals hat in the same week. Good for him.
So what's the? I got a question for Bo. For Joe. So you say the expansion draft is that different from like the regular draft, or is that like an additional draft, or is it just for the expansion team?
It's just they did it once before in what year was that? I think 2004 when the Columbus Blue Jackets and Atlanta Thrashers came into the league. Mm-hmm. So basically, the simplest way I can put it is, since Las Vegas is a new team in the NHL. They don't want them. They want them to be competitive right out of the gate. Okay. So as a result, each NHL team has two different options to protect a certain amount of players on their team, and they have to expose certain other players to be picked up in the expansion draft. So Las Vegas the expansion draft is just for Las Vegas so that they can be competitive right out of the gate. They're required to take one player from every single NHL team and put them on their team.
Oh, wow.
They have to take a certain amount of forwards, a certain amount of defensemen, a certain amount of goalies. They have to get to a certain amount of cap room on the salary cap. So they have to take players, not only just the best player from every team, but they also have to take certain players that will be able to get them as close as they possibly can to the cap floor. So you'll see that some teams will be exposing players with some really bad contracts. And possibly as a result, Las Vegas might not have a choice other than to draft those players so that they can get to the salary cap floor, which in return would be good for those certain NHL teams because they don't have that contract on their team anymore, and that gives them a lot more cap space to do with whatever they wish.
Okay. So
sign free agents, players, whatever.
So the other teams, they have the ability to actually protect like their like top players or whatever.
Yeah, there's two options. They can either protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie, or 8 skaters in total and a goalie.
Uh-huh.
So, Yeah, we'll talk about. I'll probably be back here in June, but we'll talk about that more in depthly, and then we'll go over all the types of rules. We'll do like our own mock draft type of thing. But it's really exciting as to what Las Vegas is definitely going to do. I'm really excited about that. And the fun fact is that expansion draft is 2 days before the actual NHL draft, so it's going to be a lot of players being moved around and a lot of different players going to different teams all in one weekend, basically.
Wow, cool! I can't wait. That sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So
To build a brand new team.
Exactly. And Las Vegas is going to be good. They're going to be a very good team right out of the gate.
Oh, that's just another excuse for me to get out there. Shoot.
I was going to say, can you imagine all the sports betting going on there?
What do you think, Chris? You coming?
Hey, I'm down.
We're going to have to drag Matt and Joe and Anthony will have to go. We're literally going to have to drag Matt out there. I might have to bribe his wife, be like, hey.
No, probably, yeah, that's true.
Don't say that on the air.
She's gonna come down the stairs and slap you.
Oh wait, I hear a knock on my door. Oh damn.
Joe, thanks for joining us once again, man. We really greatly appreciate it. Everyone watching again, remember you can catch him at BOJoeKO on Twitter, and the same for his YouTube page. Like I said, a whole bunch of hockey stuff that he does. He's going to go over the whole trade deadline on his YouTube page. So all my hockey fans, be sure to check this out. And Joe, hopefully we'll have you back for the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe we can get a Flyers Capitals rematch again.
I've heard a lot of funny stuff on the show before, Matt, but that's hilarious.
Players are fun. I mean, your backup goalie's going out banging players' sisters now.
Oh,
all right,
man.
I'm signing off right now. I will see you guys back in a couple months. All right.
All right. Catch his stuff. He's got some. You got some.
Thanks again.
Yeah, you got some new YouTube videos coming up in the next couple of days. I'm guessing, right? Is that what you said?
Yep, 2 should be going up probably either tonight or probably tomorrow. Well, actually, no, not tomorrow. Maybe the weekend. But
awesome.
Yeah. Good luck to you guys. I really do wish you all the luck. I really want to see Ovi win a cup. I really do.
Yeah, it's time, man.
We just want to parade in DC. We haven't felt that in a while. We just want to parade. I know you know the feeling up. Well, no, never mind. You had the Phillies win one about 10. What was it? 10 years?
What is it? 2008. So yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, at least you've had a parade since then. We haven't had one in a while.
At least you can remember it. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I was there. I was there. It was awesome.
That's pretty cool, man.
All right.
Excellent.
Well,
thanks again, Joe.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on.
See you, Joe.
See you.
So that was Bojo. Good dude.
Check him out at
good content.
BOJoeKO. He was also part of our OT3, which is pretty good. So let's get into the Redskins. Let's talk the GM. Chris, what do you think about this? That reports are going that he left. There's reports saying he was sent home. I mean, we don't know what's going on. What I think needs to happen is Bruce Allen needs to come on a podium and tell us exactly what's going on. Obviously, condolences to him. His grandmother died.
Right.
Beginning of February. Funeral was February 9th. I know people need time to mourn, but it's March 2nd, and it's the Combine. So, do you think he was sent home? Because let's remember,
I was gonna say
he's a recovery alcoholic. He stopped going to AA meetings, as reported before he came here. Do you think maybe something could have happened?
Why don't we go through the timeline? Why don't we go through the timeline first? Because you just gave a lot of information. So let's go.
Okay, I will start first. Grandmother passed away February 2nd.
Right.
Funeral was February 6th or the 9th, something like that. Now, let's fast forward. It's
February
March 2nd.
20th. No, February 20th.
All right, go ahead.
He was reportedly sent home for whatever reasons. They said that he went home. He has to deal with personal issues. At least that's what the Redskins came out and said. Whoa.
Yeah, don't worry about the video. I'm going to fix it. With Bojo left, so the Skype screen kind of like adjusted itself. So.
No, I got you. Perfect. All right, so February 20th. Apparently he gets asked to leave. Then his alleged wife, that's because it hasn't been verified, went on Twitter basically to say the reason he left was because of the death in the family, has nothing to do with him being sent home. The Redskins didn't send him home. He left due to personal reasons with the family death or whatever. Then, not too long ago, Chris Cooley on a certain other radio show said that it's possible that his drinking issues might have resurfaced.
It's really surprisingly Cooley would say that on that show when that's owned by Dan Snyder.
Right. I mean, it's
Cooley better watch himself.
It's speculation right now, but
get a pink slip.
Now. Well, obviously, I think that's the most recent thing. I think Bruce Allen actually came on a Tennessee radio show, I heard, and basically said that we were going to ask for him back when the time is right. So, also, the last thing I heard is that there's going to be no press conference, which goes to show what you said needs to happen. But they said there's going to be no press conference.
It needs to happen
until all the facts are out in the open.
Okay, well, this stuff needs to come out because it's the NFL Combine, and your GM, the guy who's shaping the team for you,
helping brought in for that
draft
reason, for scouting.
Now, I understand. I'm sure he'll get video of it. I'm sure he'll watch it, but he's not there. And this is a really big deal because not only is he not there, supposedly they're meeting with Pierre Garçon. Supposedly they're meeting with Deshaun Jackson. You got Kirk Cousins going on, and your GM is nowhere to, I hate to say it, nowhere to be found. I mean, this is really crucial stuff. And is McClellan on his way out already?
That's
1 year?
A lot of people are speculating. That's what they're speculating. I'm not sure why.
A lot of people are saying. I don't understand. Why can't the Redskins just stay out of the media? It's so hard. It seems like it just. It's they just thrive in it.
It's the market that we're in. It's Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. That's what happens here.
Place in the world.
But, I mean, it's... What do you think is going on? What's your idea of what's going on, and what do you think is going to happen?
I really think it could be the alcohol. He may have, because with his grandmother dying, he may have had a few low points. Some people go through that again. Was it relapse again when, there's a death, no one knows how close he was. So maybe he just had a low moment to try to cope with the loss of his family. That's what I think happened. I think he had a low moment. There was a loss in the family, and he's probably like, crap, I just relapsed. I think that's what happened.
That's certainly a possibility. And if that's the actual truth, then I think there's a way to get over it, to get on with it, to maybe go back to rehab, but he can still do his duties. I mean, I honestly think, there's too much speculation right now. I hate to jump to conclusions, but I think you might be right. The fact that the allegations of him going back to drinking basically have come out, and if it was as a simple answer as no, that's not the case, then why haven't the Redskins just come out and said, hey, that's not the case. He's dealing with personal issues with his family, has nothing to do with drinking. Let's get on that. It would take nothing but 2 minutes to quickly deny that is an issue and then move on with the scouting combine and with Kirk Cousins and all the other free agent issues that's going on right now. But the fact that they haven't come out and said, that's not it, I mean, to me, that's a big red flag that probably is what's going on right now.
They are being extra quiet.
They're not saying anything. They literally said there's not going to be a press conference until all the details are laid out. So to me, that tells me there's still more info. There's still some information or details that haven't been leaked out.
They're planning a response, whereas if it was as easy as just coming out and saying,
right,
it's all crap, it's all hearsay, it's all just fake, whatever. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Right. They could have just come out easily and reaffirmed he is our GM. He's here to stay, and there's nothing to worry about. But they haven't said anything. Basically, the only thing they said was we want him back, and we're going to call him back when the time is right. Mm-hmm. That's basically what Bruce Allen said. So,
all right, well, let's stay with the Redskins then. Let's move on from that since, all the facts aren't there. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins. Got the exclusive franchise tag. Was it $24 million, 24 around then? So, let's go back to 2015 real quick. He wants a long-term deal, guarantee money, all that. You basically just gave him $44 million guaranteed. So do you think maybe now they should have just done a guarantee like that back in 2015? Because let's face it,
We offered him 16, 17 million.
Probably
he didn't want it. It was too low.
Well, It was too low. Look what Brock did with 18 million. That was too low.
It was too low.
They
And
lowballed him, and he felt disrespected.
right
Now,
here we are again. Now this year,
we don't sign him. Next year, 35 million is got to be not going to happen. Is this man just getting held over until next year when Kyle Shanahan comes knocking on his door? Because let's face it, if they don't sign him to a long-term deal, they probably will not franchise tag him again.
no.
He's going to be a 49er. Do you see that? I see that. I honestly do see the 49ers going defense in the first round and just holding over with whatever they can hold over with until next year. That's what I'm starting to think. They may be thinking. Because if you think the 49ers in the draft, they're probably like, look, Kyle, you can't tell me Kyle and him don't still talk. I'm sure they do.
I mean, I'm sure they can't talk contracts or anything, but I'm sure
let's
they've
think
kept in
about it.
touch.
He was in Atlanta in a suite during the conference championship game.
I didn't know that.
Who's the offensive coordinator for Atlanta?
Right. Kyle Shanahan.
Very interesting, right?
Look, man, I think if a long-term deal doesn't happen by, what is it, July? Is it July the deadline? I can't remember exactly when the deadline is, but it's sometime in the summer.
He's not going to be here next. This is last year's.
This is it.
So Guillermo in the chat, Guillermo saying that it's more probable to have a long-term deal with Cousins now that the GM is kind of like out of the picture. If
he leaves, yes, because a lot of them are saying that he doesn't want to sign Kirk Cousins because he really doesn't do long-term deals like that, from what I'm hearing. So, yes, I mean, that is right, that if he goes, Kirk would probably get a long-term deal. But it's funny, all of this, Scott McCoolin doesn't want to do it because I don't think he wants to give that kind of money.
Here's the deal. I think it's a lot of money. If you just talk about him and what he's done, I still think it's a lot of money. But there is a shortage of competent
quarterbacks.
He's not even competent. He is a good quarterback. I wouldn't put him in the great category, and I wouldn't put him in the elite category. But he is definitely like a top 12 quarterback in this. Well, he's probably top 10 in this league in terms of ability. If you put him on a different team, he wins a lot more games, guaranteed. He doesn't have to throw for 5,000 plus yards to win a playoff game. But I think based off of the market, he's worth more than $20 million, and I think we should pay him.
You know what? I think it's going to happen.
Can you quote that? I want that to become a little thing that he just said we should pay him. Because this whole time you said from the beginning of the year, you never said good. Paul, take that clip and I want to put it on Facebook.
Look, honestly, in my opinion, we should trade with the Cleveland Browns, get RG3 back, and go to the Super Bowl next year.
Can you cut off his mic? All right, so there's the talk.
I only do it to mess with you, man. But I think. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was about to wrap it up. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I'm just gonna reiterate, based off of the current market and what happened with Brock Osweiler, how they paid him, not a good quarterback, that much money. A good quarterback deserves that kind of money in this market right now, and I think $20 million is too low, especially with what they paid him last year, and especially what they're going to pay him this year, and what he's going to make if he were to leave. We're just lowballing him. We're being cheap, and I don't know why, since we've overpaid for players in the past, i.e. Albert Hainsworth. I don't see why we can't sign him for 20. 22.
I'm saying it now. I'm saying it now. I'm predicting. Hear me now. Listen to me later. I'm predicting a huge deal. They're just gonna drop it. It's just gonna be like boom. Everybody's gonna be like, oh my god. It's gonna be a much bigger deal than what everybody's saying. Like, oh, they need to pay him the money. They need to pay him at least this much. At least this much. He's gonna get paid. That's right, Paul.
Well, there's only two quarterbacks that are getting more than $24 million this coming year. I think it's Drew Brees and
who deserves it?
I can't remember the other one. Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck and Drew Brees are the only two getting more than $24 million this coming season. So, do I think he should get paid more than them? No, because I think Andrew Luck and Drew Brees is definitely in the elite status. Andrew Luck kind of had a bad season this past year, but he's still young. He's still working into the system. They're still building that offense. They don't really have, that running back. Frank Gore is a great running back, but he's getting old, man. So their offense is not 100% set. But I think the Redskins have to pay him the money. They have to.
All right,
There's no way around it.
You're given a choice between Andrew Luck and Kirk.
That's
I would take
Andrew Luck.
Andrew. Yeah.
Really?
Andrew Luck. Yeah. Definitely.
All right. So that's gonna be. We're obviously gonna be talking about this.
Here's
every
the
week.
deal. Let me ask you. I mean, there's so much time left. Do you think he will end up being a quarterback this year?
Yeah,
Because there's still the opportunity for him to be traded.
I think he will be.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think they trade him this year. I think they go.
I'm telling you. Oh my God, is he alive? Remember last time he did that?
Okay.
He did that before. Remember he did that before? He almost like
Yeah.
Was that the voodoo thing? Was that the voodoo healing thing?
I think
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
they're gonna give him a huge deal. Let
me ask you one follow-up question to that. How does this affect us going into free agency with a question mark at quarterback? Do you think that affects the wide receivers or running backs that we might be talking to?
I think it does. I think it does. Yes, it does. There's no question about it. Because why would team want to be like, do we really want to go here? I mean, look how they're treating Kurt. How are they going to treat us? This is going to affect them a lot. And incoming free, they really, Redskins always find a way how to royalty screw themselves, and they just did it again.
Yeah, I agree.
Bent themselves over.
Who's going to want to come here without knowing who our quarterback really is going to be?
Pierre doesn't feel wanted either. It seems like he's going to go. He's going to walk.
Yeah, I've seen.
Deshaun's
his
either going to end
Instagram
up
posts.
in is either going to end up in LA or Philly. So we'll see what happens next year. We'll see how Kurt does next year if he doesn't have his two weapons.
If you had money right now, I mean, we've got money. Let's say $1,000. Would you bet that we make the playoffs or that we don't make the playoffs this year? Yeah.
My team has a better probability of making the playoffs, I think, next year.
No freaking way.
Can we talk about real quick the rumor that came out today?
All right, what's the rumor?
We are in talks with the Saints for Brandon Cooks.
What?
Yep. Tennessee and
I didn't hear that.
Tennessee and the Eagles are in talks, but they said the Titans would emerge more as the bigger because of their 2 draft picks.
What they can offer. Wow.
I would take that in a heartbeat.
Man, I mean the Saints are an offense that they're always going to throw the ball.
The Saints' theory is you have Michael Thomas who emerged this year and Cooks. You can't pay both of them, so keep the rookie. But tell you what, man, Cooks, he's small, he's quick. Can you imagine him on some rollouts?
He's a playmaker, man. He's a playmaker.
Can you imagine him on rollouts going the same place as Mariota on the run?
Yeah.
That could be dangerous. It could be. Also, they came out, Alshon Jeffrey, rumors for him. Titans once again, Philly, 49ers. He wants to go contender. If I was the Patriots, I would knock on Jeffrey's door and see what he would want as a Patriot because they could use a physical receiver.
Yeah.
And also big releases. Jamal Charles got released. Adrian Peterson got released. Dante Hightower is going to test the open market. So Eric Berry, I believe, is working on a long-term deal. Antonio Brown got a deal, and now they're working with Le'Veon Bell. So I'm interested to see what kind of contract Bell gets.
They tagged him, didn't they? They tagged him.
Yeah, but now they're working on a deal. They are in heavy. So obviously we'll have more on the NFL in the next coming weeks, man, because free agency starts next Friday. So we're doing baseball more next Thursday, but we'll definitely talk some breaking news if we have to.
That's crazy, man. They're gonna have the highest paid receiver, and then you have Le'Veon Bell. Man, that's what a team, man.
And they're gonna be locked up.
Yeah, they're gonna be locked up.
So before we move to college basketball real quick, let's talk Wizards. Can we say the biggest win of the season so far on Tuesday?
Yeah, that was a game, man. That was we had that game. We had that game in the bag early, and the Warriors came back and did what they do. But
Kevin Durant goes out early, but the play at the end of Wall, Otto Porter with that huge bucket, Mark Morris, I mean, just all around play, and Steph Curry. I don't know what's going on with him. I said Steph. Which one? Stephen Curry. Jeez, I'm saying his brother. He's struggling from downtown, obviously, and with him struggling, I don't know if he should have taken that deep 3 at the end like that. He probably should have went for a 2, try to tie it up. I think he got a little too trigger happy, but he's been struggling, so I don't know about him taking that 3. But good win for the Wizards, and then the day afterwards against Toronto, which you thought could have been a trap game, wasn't, thanks to the trade that we made with him coming off the bench and scoring 27 points. So big back-to-back wins for the Wizards. Finally, seems like the bench. They just signed Brandon Jennings, so that's good for them. So before we head out, because I know you got to head out real quick, college basketball. Conference champions start next week. What do you have as your top 4 seed? If you had to pick 4 right now, what do you got?
There's 3 I think that are a lock. It's one that I'm not quite sure.
Now let's see if we agree real quick. I'm gonna say mine. You say yes or no real quick. Kansas.
Okay. Yeah.
Villanova.
Yeah.
UCLA. Oh, you have Gonzaga, don't you?
I do.
I have Gonzaga and UCLA as well. Who's your 4th then?
That's the thing. I have no idea. I have no idea who the 4th could be. I've seen UCLA. I think I've seen Baylor there. I'm not quite sure, man. That fourth spot is going to be kind of tough to pick.
All right, and then we have Maryland, who's been struggling lately. They're going to be in the dance. They're going to make it. They'll probably be a low 7, 8, or 9 seed, but they're definitely going to get there. So, like I said, we have the conference championships are going to be next week. I mean, next week's a big thing for sports. So that's pretty much. We'll cover that more in depth. I need to talk with Paul about maybe the week the tournament starts, maybe doing our show on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. But we'll talk to our producer about that. See what he says.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, what was it?
2 weeks, maybe doing the show on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday, so we can have a college basketball preview for the tournament.
Yeah, Wednesdays are usually pretty open for me.
All right, and also
don't forget we have the schedule, we have the tournament, the Yahoo. Yep.
I load it up on Facebook, Twitter all the time. Sign up, invite your friends, invite your coworkers. Make this thing huge. See if you can beat me, Chris, Anthony, or Paul. Paul, send your email, so you better go to accepted.
I haven't accepted it either. I'm not gonna lie.
You're killing me.
But I will tonight, 100%.
I'll do it right now.
It's only $100 to enter.
Oh, jeez.
Just
go away now.
I'm just kidding.
So
100% free.
Free. Do we get trophies this
training's
time?
in full effect? Huh?
Do we get trophies this time?
Winner will get a high five from every cast member.
You'll get your name on you'll get your name on the stream saying winner.
Boom.
Winner.
There we go.
Yes.
Chicken dinner. Yeah.
Spring training's in full effect. Nationals made it one move. They signed Joe Blanton. So they did make, they got a reliever that they needed. So the Nationals are making pretty good moves. Next week is going to be our big baseball preview show. I know people are like, you're doing it early, but we always do it during spring training. It's always normal the time we do it. It's going to be on another, I guess you can say, portion of the show, which is going to be called, thanks to Chris, what's it going to be called?
What is baseball?
That's going to be our bi-weekly Shipe Sports Talk segment show. It's going to be Shipe Sports Talk, but just a different, aspect of it. It'll be mostly baseball talk. We'll include some other sports in there, but it's going to be mostly the baseball kind of show. So that's going to be next week. Anthony will be back. And then, Paul, I'll let you take it away.
I saw Bryce Harper homered his first at bat, right?
Yeah, he did. He sent it almost into the woods.
Yep.
Nice.
Hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching on the stream. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a follow on our Facebook page, and also hop over to the YouTube, our YouTube's channel. Hit subscribe, give us a like, and that way you'll stay on top of everything that.
Right here somewhere. Hit
other
it.
side.
Chris,
Yeah,
you got to do it. I think it's on your side.
No, it's on your side.
There it is.
Right. Well, you get the
There's
idea.
Facebook.
They've pointed everywhere except for the place that they actually have to point
It's right
to.
there
But
somewhere.
if you're watching, if you happen to watch, then you know where to push it. So just push the button, subscribe, follow us, like us, follow us on Twitter. It's at Shipe Sports Talk. Gmail is shipesportstalk@gmail.com, and Facebook /Shipe Sports Talk as well. Follow us, and you will be on top of everything that we put out, all the content we put out, and any news that's coming out. Breaking news. Matt, Anthony, Chris are usually pretty on top of posting things, keeping everybody informed of what's happening in the sports world. So you won't miss anything. So just if you subscribe to our social media channels.
Like I said, next week, our baseball preview show with our new segment, What is Baseball? Monday, you can join us for OT3 as me and Anthony break down Fastlane. And special guest Guillermo will be on the show to debate with us about who the greatest superstar of all time was. And then the following week, we'll have our NCAA tournament preview show. So pretty busy month for Shipe Sports Talk. And once again, BOJoeKO, thank you for joining. Or Joe, thank you for joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at BOJoeKO and then youtube.com/BOJoeKO. So Anthony will be back next week. We miss you, buddy.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, bud.
That's it. That's it for us. Have a good evening.
Did you see the Big Show?
How rough he is now?
Yeah, he lost so much weight, and he's got like a six-pack or something like that.
Apparently, Shaq is backing out of the match now.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
Also, before we go, GSP is returning for a title.
That's
Boom.
true.
And
I can't believe we missed that.
Wow.
Oh, we just sit there. There we go.
GSP and Bisbee.
He's coming back. That's cool. He's been gone for a couple years. He gets the title shot. Ooh, we'll talk about that next. We'll talk about that in a couple weeks.
All right, everyone. Have a good night. See ya.
See ya.
Good night, everybody.